Thank you for being here this morning. I want to let folks know that we made a decision to enact the Emergency Operations Center once again in Sioux Falls to help coordinate not only the efforts here in Sioux Falls, but also to help coordinate if there's any assistance that we can provide our neighbors here in South Dakota or other states as well. I do want to let the people of Sioux Falls know that we dodged a major bullet last night. I know it may not seem like it, but in fact, we really did. Thanks to the infrastructure investments that have been made, as well as the incredible work of city employees, as well as some help from Mother Nature last night at an opportune time, and of course some cooperation with Sioux Falls residents, we got through this thing. However, the water treatment plant, or our wastewater treatment plant, has never, ever worked as hard as it worked last night and is currently working right now. I'm going to let Mark explain that in more detail to you. But before I do, I'm going to make one more plea to the people of Sioux Falls. This is the the fifth emergency that I've been involved in since I've been your mayor, and it's actually the second one that has involved flooding. And I remember it succinctly the first time that we made a passionate plea to the people of this town to stop pumping their sump pump water into their drains. But yet it continues on today. And I cannot figure it out. I know that neighbors can't figure it out. I know that our team cannot figure it out. But enough is enough. We need you to stop now. You are risking not only your neighbors, but you're risking your city, and you're risking others as well. If you're doing it, stop it now. Stop it now. And I'll tell you, neighbors, if you know a neighbor that is doing it, please ask them to stop. And if you don't want to do that, I fully respect it, but I'd ask you to call the city and let us knock on their door. We'll get them to stop. Again, I'm tired. I'm cranky. But you can't imagine how tired the City of Sioux Falls employees are that were battling this thing last night. And we dodged a bullet. If we would have had a couple more inches of rain like our neighbors to the south, it could have been a major issue for this city. Again, I'm going to turn it over to Mark, but I think I've made myself clear. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be controlling. I'm asking for your help. Enough is enough. Quit dumping your sump pump water into the floor drains. It's not rocket science. We need your help. Mark, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Mayor. All right, good morning. Let me give you a sense of what the last 24 hours have been. It's been a very active weather pattern. It's been very active for city employees, as the mayor said. Multiple departments have been engaged to address everything from trees down to an overtaxed sanitary sewer system. So I'll give you a snapshot of what our teams have been managing. As the mayor said, we have reached record levels at the water plant, or at the wastewater plant. Last night we hit flows at 57.5 million gallons per day. A typical day will range between 13 and 16 million gallons per day, to give you a sense about the urgency to really control what goes into the sanitary sewer system, to reserve that just for wastewater. The lift stations are beginning to catch up, as we have a system of lift stations and gravity sewers that manage the wastewater from when it leaves your house or commercial business to the point where it gets to the treatment plant, there's one major lift station at the end of the line, and it's out near Rice Street and Bonson Avenue. And there were points in time last night where we were truly walking a tightrope with the capacity of that lift station. One of the steps that we can take is to, if you have any system, there's only so much that can actually go in a pipe. You have to start to identify where else you can take that wastewater to not exceed the capacity of any particular structure or a lift station. So today, and we've operated it for some time over by the street division, we've got what we call an equalization basin. It's just off the map here. And that's a large concrete structure that we can shave flow into. It's like having a big bathtub to hold water until the system catches up. We were utilizing that at its full capacity. And so then we had teams identify that we've got 2 lined lime lagoons just east of Cliff Avenue. We've never utilized these in the past, in recent past for wastewater. We immediately mobilized pumping teams, set up in those areas where you see the 2 red lines, and immediately started to shave flow off or take flow off that main line and start to dump it into these 2 lime lagoons. The benefit is they're lined. They're essentially like large bathtubs as well. And so we can move flow temporarily into them, allow the rest of the system to catch up, and then ultimately we'll be pumping the wastewater out of those lagoons to utilize them for their normal purpose. Throughout the night, we had 2 areas where we had received some sewer backups. We had pumping operations, hauling wastewater out of those areas. And I do suspect that it doesn't take very many sump pumps to overwhelm an 8-inch line. And so, as the mayor said, really stop pumping anything into those floor drains. That's not wastewater. That system needs to be reserved for wastewater purposes only. What you'll probably recognize is that if you discharge wastewater or sump pump water into your floor drain, it may not affect you, but it's definitely going to affect a downstream neighbor. And so only about 4 or 5 sump pumps can actually overwhelm an 8-inch line. We'd like to have residents still conserve their water usage. We've got another weather pattern coming through tomorrow, and as much as we can get the system caught up to get that ready only benefits us. We've lifted the ban, but we still want you to conserve. We'd also ask you to not water your lawns at this point in time. The ground's already saturated. There's still a number of irrigation systems that I seen running this morning. The ground's already saturated. We don't need any more water, and so at least until the sun comes back out, we'd ask you to stop watering your lawns for a short period of time. Our activity today is we've got a number of teams out looking at the street system, looking for manhole covers that are off, heavy debris, and we're addressing those. We've got our street teams that will actually go out and reset those manhole covers. We'll be sweeping up those large piles of debris. We've also have a number of people that are walking some of those drainage ways and looking for any manhole covers that could be upset that are allowing some additional flow into our system. And ultimately getting ready for tomorrow's rain event. I will tell you that the system is slowly catching up, but we've got a long ways to go, and so we appreciate your cooperation. Thank you. Don?
Thanks, Mark, and good morning. Just wanted to give you a little update on the status of our park system. For those of you who've been down at Falls Park here recently, you'll notice there's a constant stream of vehicles going through the falls. To check out the falls, if you're in your vehicle in the parking lot, that's a good place to be, but encourage you to stay away from the edges of that water. We have areas that are barricaded and taped off where some of the lower viewing platforms can get some high water, and so just encourage you not only at Falls Park but throughout the entire river system and the drainage ways to stay away from those until that water goes back down. Yankton Trail Park and Spencer Park are closed at this time due to high water levels. And then we have also closed the Cherry Rock restroom that is prone to flooding, and that has been closed off. We've valved off the connections to the sewer system so that there can't be any infiltration into the sewer system, but we have closed that restroom. The other thing is that we do have some trails throughout, for example, Spencer Park and Yankton Trails that do have some water over them, and they have been barricaded. And so just again, encourage you to use extreme caution in and around the river system and the drainage ways. The other thing I'd share with you is through 8 o'clock last night, we were out removing debris off of streets and clearing those streets so for safe passage. And then today we're out going through our park system and then going back and cleaning up that debris that came down last night. And so all in all, the tree situation is really generally pretty good, but we do have some more work to do. With that, I think I'll turn it over to Chief Barthel.
Good morning. We were extremely busy also yesterday. The majority of our calls took place between that 3 and 5 o'clock hour. We had between that period and then overnight, we had a total of 117 storm-related calls that police officers responded to. Obviously, at its peak, there were way more calls than we had officers to respond, so we prioritize the calls and take them in priority order, and we're able to get through them in about an hour and a half to 2 hours. But these numbers will be available also later, but just to kind of give you a brief overview of the calls. We went on 23 stalled vehicles, 20 accidents, 54 traffic hazards. The majority of those were manhole covers that had blown off, 9 burglar alarms that were probably lightning related, 3 different electrical hazards, branches falling on trees, those sort of things. We assisted the fire department on 7 different fires, and then also 1 structural collapse. That was the apartments at 308 South Summit. The ceiling had collapsed because of the water, and so the residents were evacuated, and Red Cross also assisted with that. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Jim Sedaris with fire.
For fire, we had actually a very busy day. We ran on 84 calls. Normally we run about 30 a day, so we are pushing our total capacity up significantly. A number of house fires. We had multiple house fires going on. Some of those were related to the lightning strikes. So we also, like Chief Barthel said, we saw our peak come up at that time. Everything went well. We kept our crews staffed. We actually had people at the 911 center to prioritize staff. We kind of do like a triage, red, yellow, green, and we can move people around that way and ensure that we can get the city covered well. Some safety messages, just so we get ready for this next storm that could come through and potentially other storms. Do not drive through water that you haven't been through before on some of these roads. The road water went up significantly. We had a number of stalled vehicles. Your cars don't work well in high water, and what happens is they'll either stall or they'll get pushed off the road. We did have that yesterday. There was a car reported that was actually swept off the interstate just east of Sioux Falls. We did get paged out for that. So be careful of that. If you're going to drive and not heed the warnings and drive across roads with water going across them, be sure you know where you're at. Be sure you have your cell phone in a Ziploc bag, because we have to know how to get to you, because you're not going to make it through. And we saw that yesterday all over. So be cautious of that. Stay back from the river. We know the river can rise and fall very quickly. It's not just what's happening in Sioux Falls, but any rain upstream from us will affect the flow in Sioux Falls. So stay back from that. The water is moving very swiftly. We do have crews trained, especially for swift water rescue. We don't want to have to use them, but it's going to help if people just heed those messages. Also, keep your kids and yourself out of the floodwaters. The floodwaters are kind of fun to walk through for little kids, but once it gets above your knees or knee depth with fast-moving water, it can actually knock you off your feet. And the problem is you're at the mercy of the water, and it's very difficult to regain your footing and get out. So be very cautious of that. And also keep your head in the game. The weather's changing constantly. We haven't seen rain like this in a number of years. So what can happen north of us can affect the river here. We need to be aware of that. And we didn't expect this much rain yesterday. 20-mile difference from Sioux Falls to Canton is 7 inches of rain. We could have that again. So we need people to be very aware of what's happening and just really take caution, and if you don't need to go someplace, you don't just not go there. That's our big issue right now. Thank you.
Regan Smith, Sioux Falls Emergency Management. I'll just talk a little bit about our coordination efforts on incidents like this. We start early in the day, probably 7 yesterday morning. We started communicating with all the city departments, sharing information from the National Weather Service that we were under this threat, started to monitor it, and then once we got into it, shared information briefs on what was happening throughout the city. We did provide some mutual aid yesterday to Rock Rapids, Iowa. We gave the city there 30,000 sandbags, and then we also gave Harrisburg 2,000 sandbags. We're assessing where we're at as far as resources here in the city, taking an inventory of those flood fight assets, determining when the threat is over here, and when we can release some of those, but we'll continue to do that. We continue to coordinate with Minnehaha County, Lincoln County, the state of South Dakota through their Emergency Operations Center and through the Department of Public Safety. We'll continue to coordinate with our community partners, in particular the National Weather Service, our nonprofit partners, the Red Cross, and the 211 Helpline Center. I'd offer it if residents are looking for information or looking for assistance, they can dial 211 and they'll try to connect those residents with some help or some information there. As we go through, we'll keep the Emergency Operations Center open, primarily to support that public works sanitary sewer operation, and we'll just continue to brief the media, let the public know what the situation is as we go forward. With that, I don't know, Doug, are you going to speak on behalf of Minnehaha County as far as the situation?
Very briefly, Doug with Minnehaha County Emergency Management. I guess I can't add too much more to what's been said already. To piggyback off Chief Sedaris, we just urge people to be very cautious when they're out and about. There's a number of roads that were closed last night due to water over them. The water continues to recede, and those roads will be open as they become clear. The main communities that were affected within the county are in the east half, Valley Springs, Brandon, Garrettson, and we're continuing to work with officials there to help them as much as we can. And hopefully that we'll get those things resolved very, very quickly. But again, for the public, we just urge just be patient with us. We're doing the best we can, and again, don't drive over any roadway that has water over it. That becomes a rescue operation, and it tasks our resources even more to come out and try and rescue those. So just use common sense if you would, please. Thank you.
I'm Sally Johnson, the meteorologist in charge at the National Weather Service in Sioux Falls. Just a few highlights from yesterday's storm. The highest gust that was reported in Sioux Falls was 96 miles an hour, measured by one of our trained spotters at North Cliff near Russell Street. That was right around 3 p.m. At the airport, we gusted to 88 miles an hour, again right around 3 p.m. The highest, or the largest hail reported in the county was 1.75 at Humboldt, and we had 1-inch hail at our office at the airport. For rainfall yesterday, we got 3 inches at the airport. I suspect we have higher amounts on the east side of the city. We are still pulling in information from our network of observers, so we will have something on our website as far as rainfall amounts. For the month, we have 12.97 inches of rain, and that's up till yesterday, or midnight. So that right now we're in record territory. We're about 10.84 inches above normal for the month so far, and we're only halfway through the month. So right now we're in record territory. We'll see what happens by the end of the month. As far as river flooding, the Big Sioux will crest later this afternoon in the evening, and will be below flood stage later tonight. For the forecasts, we do have a chance of rainfall in today. Wednesday night into Thursday, we have higher rainfall amounts, anywhere from 1 to 1.5 inches of rain. Those amounts have not yet gone into our river models. We will make sure that that goes in for this evening's forecast, so stay tuned, keep up. Our website is up to date as the forecasts are reissued twice a day. We do have a chance of severe today if thunderstorms can get going. large hail, damaging winds will be the main threats. We have another chance of severe thunderstorms tomorrow. Again, damaging winds, large hail will be the main threats with any of those storms. And again, Wednesday night and Thursday is our next chance of any significant rainfall. Inch to inch and 3/4 is possible. And then the rest of the week should be fairly dry. We do have low chance of thunderstorms in later in the week, but at this time, no widespread significant rainfall is expected after Thursday.